What's going on? Welcome to Occult Topics with the Professor. Thank you for tuning in. Um, Hopefully, this won't be long. Lately, I've been going on and on with the tarot breakdown, real long videos. We're going to keep this kind of short and sweet. The topic, as you can see behind me, Moon Night. We're going to talk about Moon Night, mythology, and the four worlds of Kabbalah. Before I get started again, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure that you like, subscribe, hit that notification button, share. Please feel free to leave a comment. I'm always down to build. I'm the professor, but I'm an internal student. So let's get it cracking. Now, the topic is Moon Night. And the only reason I'm doing this, I know the Moon Night series is over. Only reason I'm doing this is because a lot of people were, not a lot, but enough people expressed their dissatisfaction with Moon Night. And on one level, I guess I can agree, but then again, I don't, because I collected the comics. I'm into the mythology behind it all, and of course, the science. So what I wanted to do real quick was I wanted to demonstrate some of the science by going into first the mythology of Moon Knight, who is Khonshu. And I don't have my encyclopedia of Egyptian deities. I'll go off these two. Just real quick, we're gonna run through some good information on Khonshu, and I just want to show first the let's break down the deity itself, because I'm gonna address some of the complaints that I heard in terms of why a lot of people didn't like Moon Knight. So first, let's do a true decoding, and let's break it down piece by piece. Okay, now what I'm going through now is the Encyclopedia of Spirits, the ultimate guide to the magic of fairies, genies, demons, ghosts, gods, and goddesses by Judith Illicis. This is actually one of the better books that you can ever get on deities. The first 100 and something pages, I want to say, the first 112 pages makes this book a great grab, a great buy. It deals with how to set up ancestral and deity altars, and the information alone in the first 100 pages makes this book worthwhile. Everything else is just extra. She does a great job in terms of showing the correspondences between each deity to deity. So let's get into Khonshu right quick, or Khonsu. So also known as Kinsu Khan's origin Egypt. Khonsu is described as Bastet's son, or as the son of Amun and Mut, or Sobek and Hathor, spirit of the moon. When he causes the crescent moon to shine, women conceive. Moon bathing helps the process. Young women were once warned not to lie in the moonlight. Apparently, Khonsu may not need human male assistance. So he was known to get his I guess his Zeus on. He possessed many sanctuaries throughout ancient Egypt, but his principal shrine was in Thebes, where he had a temple within the precinct of the Temple of Amun at Karnak. Khonsu is also a master healer with dominion over time. He has some control over the length of human lifespan. He is an. What's up, sweetie? You need something?
Oh no, I heard you talking to the phone.
Oh no, I'm just good. Where are we at? He is an ally, friend, and companion of Thoth. Now that's important, because later we're going to tie in this Thoth correspondence to Khonsu, and then what we saw portrayed in the series, because I heard a lot of people say that he didn't even act godlike, So let's get to it. He was an ally, friend, and companion of Thoth, who also has association with the moon and time. So what you have to understand, first of all, is that Khonsu is just an aspect or a correspondence of Tahuti. Most likely one replaced the other, because we know, well, most should know that Tahuti played Khonsu in the game, similar to chess. Khonsu lost. So that was showing like a passing of the guard. So Khonsu is just a correspondence to Tahuti. And so it says here that Khonsu has a youthful, charming nature. He likes games and is portrayed playing the Egyptian board game Senet with Thoth. Khonsu, like Thoth, likes to wager and may be persuaded to play with a devotee. You set the wager before you start playing. Tell him what you will give him if you lose, what you must give, and what he must give if you win. If you can't play Senet, learn or teach him a new board game. So here, just on in terms of invoking or evocation, Judica Illis is showing you how to tap into this deity. He's attached with or connected to wagering and games, basically gambling. Then you know it's gambling because he's associated with time, and gambling is associated with divination, telling the future. Banks too. All of that is gambling. So you can deal with Khonsu, not just for healing, not just for moon rituals and fertility rituals and finding your love. You can also deal with Khonsu for wealth. And then it says here also, Khonsu is most frequently petitioned for fertility, especially if no physical cause for infertility can be determined, or when the woman is fertile, but the male component needs some assistance. He also provides safe childbirth. The most ancient aspect of Khonsu was a fierce warrior who inspires rage and serves Egypt's pharaohs. Okay, iconography, a young man wearing a royal sidelock and bearing the moon on his shoulders. Attribute is the knife, bird is the hawk, planet is the moon. It says here, see also Amun, Bastet, Chandra, Hathor, Mut, Sobek, and Thoth. Okay, that was just one instance showing the attributes of this energetic archetype, which is Khonsu. Now, what you should have noticed is that number one, he has a boyish, he's a charming boy. So he has a childlike quality. And I think that that was one of the things that people didn't understand when they watched Moon Knight. He was kind of fickle. He seemed kind of like not godly. At times, yeah, especially at the end of the series. But there was at one point, I think it was in episode 3, where he told, I believe it was Mark, to hold that the youngster over the ledge, like he'll tell you, don't worry about it. And when he fell, Khonsu seemed just as surprised and said, "Oh man, I thought he would talk." That's something that a youngster would say. That's something the kid would say. Somebody that really doesn't understand the consequences of life and death. So for me, I definitely saw that aspect of Khonsu. And then we're gonna, after I read, let's see what's now. This next book I have is Encyclopedia of Ancient Deities by Charles Russell Coulter and Patricia Turner. And I believe this one doesn't have any correspondences for Khonsu. Let's get to it. Oh, they got him under Kinsu. Okay, also known as Aa, Chespichis, Greek, Chans, Chunas, Kinsu Neferhetep, Kinsu Pa Kart, Kinsu Ra, Khans Hor, Kuns. An early moon god of healing and regeneration, Kinsu is considered to be the divine child of Amen and Mut. His name means traveler, because of course the moon travels across the sky. And Masons are considered traveling men. Moon plays a big part of Freemasonry. And he crosses heaven as the moon god. He was well known as a healer during the reign of Ptolemy IV. He may be a form of Amen and Ptah. He is represented as a young man in the form of a mummy with bound legs bearing the moon's disc and crescent on his head. He is also represented as wearing a crescent moon and disc surmounting a skull cap. In later periods, he is shown standing on crocodiles. He is associated with Thoth. Okay. So we've covered some of the aspects of Khonsu as a deity. Now, what you have to realize also is that Khonsu being a correspondence to Tahuti, that makes him fall in, and I have my Papa Legba shirt on, that makes him fall into the aspect of Hermes, the trickster, Mercury, Loki, um, even the Christ figure, because all these correspond to Tahuti. And it's I've put together a great argument that Tahuti might actually be every deity in existence. It's a good, it's I know that sounds wild. You might be saying how, what, when, why, where, but I've compiled a lot of research, and Tahuti stretches back far. And a good book that I have that kind of blew me away and got me started on that track is the Owaspy Bible. The Owaspy Bible lists Tahuti and some of the things he's done, and it's just, it makes you wonder. So now there's another book I only have in PDF. I printed out a few pages that I want to share, and that is The Sacred Magic of Ancient Egypt by Rosemary Clark. So this is taken from a ritual from Thebes, I believe, no, Karnak, and the yeah, from Karnak. And the purpose of this is to invoke Khonsu. And you'll find later on that the only way to invoke Khonsu is to go through Tahuti. So we know he's a correspondence to Tahuti. And the only thing I really want to point out is that Khonshu is a correspondence, or the correspondence to Tahuti is closer to Hermes the trickster as opposed to Tahuti the wise. Even though it's all the same, it's just like, it's like taking a prism and you put light in that prism and it fractures into the different spectrums of the rainbow, the color spectrum. So it's all coming, that projection is all coming from the same crystal, but those different fractures, those different grades of light, those different vibrations are actually the different aspects of Tahuti. So that's why Tahuti has a manifestation as Khonshu. Tahuti has a manifestation aspect as Anubis, so on and so on. But I just want to read this real quick, and then we're going to double back and tie it in to Moon Knight, the series. And then I want to tie it in eventually from Moon Knight. We have the mythology, which we're covering now, and then I want to show from the series how it ties into the 4 Wars of Kabbalah. Now, what I'm about to give you, this is not the only breakdown. It's just one. There's many layers to the onion. I just want to show the science because, number one, one of the things I heard was that Khonshu didn't act like a deity. The other thing I heard was that how they in Egypt and ain't no black or brown skin up in there. And then a lot of people didn't understand the aspect of him having that of Mark having that split personality. So personally, I think it all ties in, and hopefully by the time I finish, you'll see what I see, or hopefully you'll see more. So here is the invocation of Khans. Khan's patron, he's the patron of divination and exorcism. He is the netter who bridges the divinatory powers of Jehuti in the season of Gemini, and the reflective healing powers of Nebhet in the following season of Cancer. So we see already a relationship between him and the zodiac, but it's always it's begins with Jehuti in the season of Gemini, which is that polarity. So that bipolar nature that Khonshu exhibited in the series and in the comic books, that bipolar aspect. And it says here in the Egyptian calendar, he is regent of the 9th solar month of Pa in Khonshu, Pachans, and in sacred astronomy, the nectar of the Neominia, the first new moon of the new year. At his exclusive domain in Karnak, he was known as Khans Jehuti Neferhotep, he who vanquishes the powers of darkness. And you wonder, how does the moon vanquish the powers of darkness? Well, the moon is a reflection of the sun. And so he shines bright like one as a reflection, you know. He is his light shines in the darkest of nights. So he represents that aspect of light even in darkness. There's a legend about him going to heal someone, and I just want to. I'm gonna breeze through it. A legend at this Theban temple discloses the circumstances of the god's banishment of a possessing spirit in the new kingdom. The story tells of a princess, Bintreshi, the sister of Ra-Neferu, one of the queen of Ramses II. The girl's brother, the prince of Bektin, sent an appeal to Egypt for the assistance of Pharaoh's magician priest in delivering her from the illness. The Oracle of Khans was approached on the matter, and the netter consented to help after oracular consultation, basically after a channel. They tapped in that archetype, that energy, said, you know what? I'll dive in and I'll help. I'll make it happen. And so it says here, subsequently, the priest of the temple undertook a journey to the distant kingdom in the company of a small statue in which the great statue of the netter at the temple had charged its spirit into the smaller one. Now, if you think about what was just said, that would be the Shaktis that were in the Moon Knight series, where the deity was confined to a statue. Now, in ancient times, there was a large statue that was charged with the energy of Khonsu. And what this story is saying is that this priestess basically took some of that energy and fused it into a smaller one to travel with. And it brings to mind the story in the Bible where when Abraham left the city of Ur in Chaldea, he took his God with him. So that's essentially what this allegory, this story is saying. And so it was brought to confront the demon, and the netter thereby made peace with it, which you wouldn't think of a deity that's the banisher of evil and shines light in darkness and all the things that Khonsu does. But still, that's what it was. And it says that in addition to his divinatory powers, Khans has a special association with the placenta, which the Egyptians believed was the body's twin, its undeveloped mirror image. As such, this deity represents unmanifest life. Now, for that part right alone, representing unmanifest life, that's going to be my tie-in to the four worlds of Kabbalah, which you'll see later. And what I also want to do is I want to just point out, because this book is about invoking, this book is all about spells to invoke Tahuti. So if you're not about Moon Knight, you could care less. This book, let me get the name for you again. The name is The Sacred Magic of Ancient Egypt by Rosemary Clark. If this is an archetype or energy that you are trying to work with, whether it's invocation or evocation, this book is full of nothing but spells for invocation and evocation, and not just of Khonsu, of all Egyptian deities. And from what I read of it, it seems on point. So I would say if you don't have it, you can find a PDF. If you can't find a PDF, hit me up on Facebook. You can email me, michaelkbell@yahoo.com, and I'll hook you up with it. But I haven't seen what it costs or on Amazon, but I would suggest if there's something that you're really into, you're serious about, unless you can't afford it, buy the book. Books are basically repositories of power. You want that in your hand, and also to support the author. I'm an author. I have a ton of PDFs as well. If I can buy the book, I will. Sometimes I'll buy the book even though I have the PDF, because I use PDF to study and research with, and I use the books to kind of, as I digest it, and I know what chunks I want to pull out to work with or do whatever. But here's the observance of a ceremony. The spell for invoking. So the whole purpose of this ritual is to invoke Khonsu. And look how it starts off. The spell for invoking Jehuti is initially recited. So this is doubling back and explaining when I said that Khonshu is just an aspect of Tahuti. So how do you contact Khonsu? You invoke Jehuti. And it says the spell for invoking Jehuti is is initially recited to protect the ceremonial proceedings from invading spirits. This draws the essential functions of both gods to exercise malevolent influences. An offering, the image of Jehuti, is then made in the form of scribal implements. Scribal instruments, writing paper, pen, and ink. Now remember, these are also the same tools that Tahuti uses. The pen, writing instruments, ink, papyrus, paper, and that's essentially how you would contact these deities. In the Judica Illis book, it says if you really, the simplest form of tapping in is you make a petition. And that petition, you set out the implements of his office, which would be the pen, paper, ink, and whatever. You would even write down what it is you wanted. But knowing that Khonsu likes to gamble, you would write down what you're willing to wager if you lose and what you expect to gain if you win. And then if it's a game that he can't play, you teach him how to play. Me personally, I teach him how to play mumbly pegs and tiddlywinks. Yeah, and see if you can beat me at that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think that's all I'm gonna do. There's other rituals and spells for invocation, evocation, but I just wanted to show that the connection between Khonsu and Tahuti is definite. It's just a correspondence. It's just another aspect of Tahuti. I'm pretty sure if you research far enough, we find that Khonsu was probably an Assyrian deity or a Persian or something. Egypt was real good about incorporating different deities from different cultures into their expansive mythology. So we've covered the mythology of Khonsu. Now let's go through the series Moon Knight. So I want to address now the people who said, man, wasn't no black people. They was in Egypt. That's true. But if you read the comic, or even if you Googled it, because you had to read the comic, if you Google Moon Knight, you will see that Mark Scepter, Mark was the son of a rabbi. He was a little Jewish boy, just for lack of a better terminology. They, by using the actor that they used, they attempted to portray him as Middle Eastern, but his dad was a rabbi. So, and in the comic book, they portrayed essentially the face of Egypt that we see today. Now, most know that the Egyptians of today are more of a Semitic, nomadic aspect, as opposed to the deeply, darkly melanated people who represented Egypt, Egyptos, which meant the burnt land or the burnt people, or the dark soil, all the different meanings they had to say about Egypt, other than to say that the people there were dark-skinned. But just like the rest of the planet right now, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody boot black these days. Used to be back in the days, you found a ton of people that was just jet black. Everybody grew up knowing at least 5 or 6 people with different variations of the name Black. I grew up with a black ass, a blacky blue. It just went on and on. How all these different variations. But what I'm saying is, don't get caught up on skin color. You should be grateful that it wasn't a melanated person, it wasn't somebody dark skinned or black or whatever, if this is your hype, because it showed this fractured psychology. Now, even though I'm not gonna lie, melanated black people, or whatever you want to call yourself, Moors, Kangs, whatever, the psychosis is real. The fact that he had to create these different aspects of himself just to deal with reality, that's reflective of a huge majority of the population. But I appreciated that they said, hey, we're not going to put this on y'all, we're going to put this on us. That was just my take. Now, if you really serious about decoding, you want to see yourself in these movies, number one, you got to start writing, dog. But also what you do is you decode from a higher science. You don't go off skin color, because epidermal melanin is nothing anyway. Nothing. There's melanin is required in everybody's body. You need melanin to see, you need melanin to taste, you need melanin to smell, you need melanin to hear, you have melanin in your brain. So that alone, no. What I do personally when I'm watching a movie, I decode things like hair color. Okay, nobody in this movie look like me. I'm gonna go off hair color. We know that blondes are considered dizzy and goofy. She's a dizzy blonde. Well, actually, the blonde represents the color gold. That would be like synonymous with fire, maybe even air, the rising sun. So the dizzy or goofy aspect, not so much that that person is dumb, but their head is in the clouds. That's what they always say about blonde, or her head is in the clouds. Well, the clouds represent the highest aspect, that God realm. And what does the Bible say? My thoughts are not your thoughts, your ways are not my ways. So when I see that, I can put that person into a category. The same thing with darker hair. You'll find, like, especially like movies, like most movies, usually for the female actress, you'll find that when there's some high science involved, if she has dark hair, her name's going to be Melanie, Mel, something of that nature. A good movie to point out where you can see this easily is Inception, because Leonardo DiCaprio, his wife's name was Mel. Her name was Melanie. We know that those are derivatives of the word melanin. So, and you can see it from her dark hair. And I usually translate like red hair as indicating magic, right? And so on and so on. So, especially if it's simple colors, like somebody's hair is purple or something like that, you can tag that to be a chakra or anything associated with that chakra. So that's one of the things I use when I decode movies and get beyond skin color. You know what I'm saying? Because science is told outside of the spectrum of skin color. And I'm gonna say this while we at it. It's off topic a little bit, but if you think about it, Jung pointed out that we share a collective unconscious. Everybody's okay with that. Collective unconscious. You hear people all the time. Collective unconscious, collective unconscious. The deeper you get in your studies, you'll find that everybody has I won't say everybody has a soul. But what you'll find out is the soul is not some individualized thing. The soul, there's only one soul, because we're all emanations of that one divine spark. It's like something fractured into a thousand tiny pieces, but you put those pieces together, it makes one. We share a collective unconscious. So that tells me that it's all one. It's all one. Most don't understand or haven't reached that level, that just like we share, when I say we, I mean all of creation shares the collective unconscious. We all share the dream. Everybody shares the same dream. Just because I don't bump into you at night when I'm dreaming, or just because you don't bump into that racist motherfucker down at the quickie mark, that doesn't mean that you don't share the dream, because a dream is just a plane, and it's actually the etheric plane just above our physical realm. It's the etheric plane. So yeah, so I don't get. I live in this world, but I do my best not to be of it. I'm just looking for the science, dog. I'm just looking for the science. So let's get back to the series. What I appreciated the most about the series was how they eased into explaining this fractured psyche. Remember, psyche, the Greek word for psyche actually means soul. This fractured psyche that Mark had. And they kind of eased into it, where Stephen would wake up and he didn't know how he got there. And then slowly but surely they kind of eased in how Mark would be like, was that you, Stephen? Stephen like, no, that was you. And they both kind of didn't know. Well, if you followed the comics, you would know that there's a fourth and even there's a third and even a fourth aspect. There's Jake Lockley, and then eventually, like as of right now, because I was reading these comics back in the early 80s. So now there's actually another one known as the Inner Child. You all right, bud?
Yeah.
All right, you know I'm recording, man. Okay, if you want to do your thing, you can dip out. It's all good, or you can stay and hang out.
I'm gonna hang out.
All right, it's all good. So there's actually a fourth, but we're not going to get to the fourth is known as the inner child, which makes perfect sense. So we see that if you actually examine it, high science is being dropped. So this fractured psyche that Mark had to create because of abuse and trauma. I got to give it up. Brother Panic was one of the best ones. Actually one of the first I ever heard refer to this trilogy, which is trauma, repetition, and symbol. These are the only ways that we learn. These are the only ways to impact your psyche. Most are stuck at a trauma level. And because of being stuck at a trauma level, they find themselves repeating the same patterns. So trauma and repetition. Now, nobody wants to reprogram their mind intentionally with trauma, even though other cultures have. People who walk on fire, self-flagellation, you can beat yourself. You can do that if you want to. I pass. Repetition. So long as I'm not repeating a negative pattern, I'm okay with repetition. Matter of fact, I use repetition to my benefit through the use of mantras. What's another good way of repetition? Really mantra is the main one, but a sigil would represent repetition as well. If you're sigils of energy. Thanks for chiming in, buddy. I appreciate that. I appreciate you, man. That's why I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here because you remind me of some good points. And so sigils, those kind of things you can use repetitiously to reprogram your subconscious mind and to repair your fractured psyche. The other way is through symbols. Moon night represents the crescent moon. That's a symbol. So you can attach that symbol and use it to reprogram and heal your fractured psyche, or your fractured mind, fractured soul, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought that was cool in the sense that they showed the trauma, because every superhero has a background story. They have what they call an origin story. And that was his. His brother died. His mom blamed him, and his whole family life kind of went down the drain. And so he created Mark, and then eventually he created Jake as like his protector. But we're not going to dive too deep in that. Now, we're going to bring in Khonshu again at this point, because I want to show the 4 layers, just like we have the 4 elements. The 5th would be spirit. That's the inner child. We're not going to get to that. We're just going to speak on these 4 elements. And the 4 elements would be Khonshu as the God element. Namaste, the God in me recognizes, or the God in me sees the God in you. Khonshu. Then you have Stephen, who's the intellectual. He's more of a mental. He's on the mental plane. Khonshu would be a God aspect. He would be on the archetypal plane, which would be, I'll bring it to Kabbalah in a minute. And then we have Mark, Mark would fall under Mark would be, he's not solely on the material, but he's just above it. He's just above it. He is, he would be, what's a good way to describe Mark? Because we got the God level, we have the mental level, and then we would say he represents, I guess we could say he's the consciousness. He would be like, because Mark does have a conscience. He's done things. A good scene, I believe, was in episode 5 when they were wandering around through those hallways, those halls of the mentor, and he went into the one room and he saw everybody he had killed. We knew then that he had a conscience. He knew how to block it and do what he had to do, but he definitely had a conscience. So we'll say that he represented the consciousness, the conscious mind. And then Jake, who was the cold-blooded killer and enjoyed doing it, he represented that plane of materiality. Now, I'm going to tie it in now to Kabbalah, the 4 worlds of Kabbalah. That plane of materiality, that's the Saya. That's the best way I always remember Saya is the material plane, earth, the element earth. Some Kabbalistic texts refer to it as the world of 1,000 things. So you hear 1,000, you might think that's just one more than 999. But just like the crown chakra is the 1,000-petaled lotus, 1,000 isn't an exact number. It's just to signify many possibilities, a lot, not an exact number. So for Kabbalah to be, for a Messiah to be the world of 1,000 things, anything is possible. It's the world of sensations, experience, polarity. You can, everything on the tree of life coalesces. It comes down through the moon or your side, which is Cancer. And we also saw that there's a correspondence to Kansu in the sign of Cancer, as well as Gemini. Gemini would be the two pillars on the tree of life. Yesod, the moon, would be Cancer, and everything is filtered to that down to the material plane. So Jake was just living a dream, man. He did what he felt. He was materialistic in that sense. He had no conscience. Kill, it don't matter, boy, girl, old man, he did it. Mark, even though Mark is you could say the originator, he is the real, but these different aspects of him, these multiversal aspects of himself in his head, Mark he had a conscience. So he was above that realm of Messiah, but he found himself right there on the tree of life, which would be Netzach holding his side, what's known as the astral triangle. Or I believe it's also known as the ethical triangle. I could be wrong about that, but that's where he found himself, because he did have a conscience. There were things he did that he, for lack of a better word, he did things he wasn't proud of, but he had also found ways to come to grips with it. And we saw that also in the episode, I believe that was episode 5 as well, no, 6, where he eventually made it to his paradise. But you see, once he got to his paradise, he didn't want to stay, because he was still fractured. Even though he had found that little bit of peace, that little bit, he still felt fractured. He didn't feel whole, which is why he went back for those other aspects of himself. So you look at Kansu, he would apply to Absolute, the archetypal world. In Absolute, Kether is the first emanation. Kether is spraying into being from the Ein Sof and Ein Sof So Kether just came into being. It was not created. And then from Kether, from Absolute, we drop down to the Briatic world. And this is the world of creation. It's the mirror reflection of that formless archetypal world that's all potential. Absolute represents potential. Now, Absolute represents Kansu. Now, we just said that Kansu is an aspect of Tahuti as the trickster god, as the Papa Legba. So that's why Kansu was just as neurotic, and it actually, he appreciated the fact that Mark was actually neurotic. He rolled with that. He understood it, and he manipulated, and he worked with it. And then you have Stephen. Stephen will fall in that Briatic world. He was, that's the world of air, of knowledge. And that's what Stephen represented, Stephen Grant. Now, in the comics, Stephen Grant was a millionaire, smart on it, had everything. He applied his knowledge, things of that nature. So that was fitting. And then when you drop down to Yetzirah, which is where you found Mark, again, like I said, that's like, that represents water. Again, tied into the moon and consciousness and knowledge, and having a understanding of right or wrong. But also at this level, there's potential for your consciousness to be polluted, because remember, you're still, even though at this level the moon is the focal point of that downward triangle, that the moon is actually resting on the center pillar, you're still encompassed on both sides by this polarity. So there's always the possibility to be too far left, too far right, and for your thinking to be exploited. And then again, just to bring it all back, at the bottom, you have Jake, who's living his best life. Rape, rob, kill, murder, steal. It's all unimportant. It's all unimportant to him, so long as I get the job done. And I think that's what made him an excellent servant of Kansu, because Kansu enjoys wagers. And if anybody that gambles, you know that sometimes you got to let it ride, just off the gut feeling. You got to roll with it. And I'm pretty sure that that aspect of Khonsu as a trickster, he loved that neurotic aspect of Jake. So we've been getting down for about 43 minutes. I said I wasn't gonna hold anybody hostage. I just wanted to address some of the complaints. I wanted to show some of the science. It's there. But again, let me say this. Everything ain't for everybody. We are right here in Asaya, the place of 1,000 things. You walk into a store, you don't have just vanilla and chocolate. You have Neapolitan, you have vanilla bean vanilla, you have all these different flavors. So you savor the flavor that you enjoy. I just wanted to take this time out to show some of the correspondences and to say that, hey, the science was there. At least it was there for me. Hopefully some of this kind of enlighten you. And even if it didn't, maybe it kind of solidified in your mind, like, man, that was some bullshit. So if it was, more power to you. I just want to say again, thanks for tuning in on the Code Topics with the Professor. If you haven't already, man, hit the like, subscribe, show me some love, comment. I'll definitely get back to you. You see, I gave my email out at the start, which is michaelkbell@yahoo.com. I'm always down to build. If you catch me on Facebook, you already know what time it is. Same thing with Instagram. What I also have, I don't have any near right now. But I'm gonna pump my book. Matter of fact, yeah, I'll just say that if you haven't already, buy a copy of my book, The Occult Meaning, the Masonry, its Symbols, and the Chakra System. You can purchase it at pillarbookpublishing.com, or you can go on Facebook, find me. You'll see my face on my profile. The link is in my description. Same on Instagram. I am who I think I am. You can tap in, get the link out of my bio to purchase the book. If you Google it, guess what it's going to do? It's going to shoot you to either Instagram or Facebook, and they read the same results. Although my book has masonry in the title, you don't have to be a Mason to purchase and understand. You'll see from a lot of the good reviews I've gotten that book has far exceeded my expectations, and I did have high hopes for it. I wanted to write a book that would help the beginner as well as aid the advanced, and I think I came really close, and I'm about 90 days away from releasing the follow-up workbook to it. I also have a Star Trek book that I'm going to be dropping, both the mundane and an occult version. I love Star Trek. Me and Devin Britton, we have started a Star Trek podcast called Occult Trek, where we dive in on Star Trek and other sci-fi and basically decode and show the science in that. So, hey, again, thanks for tapping in. Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, share. And I'm giving away free books. Only way you can have a chance at getting that free book, you got to go through some of these videos that I'm posting and drop Easter eggs in the videos. First person to respond to a specific Easter egg, you get that book. I'm giving out my email. You can tap in. Once I see that you're the first person to comment with that Easter egg, you got it. The book is yours. Right now, I am giving away Money Magic by Jade, which is, as a matter of fact, let's see real quick how much Money Magic by Jade is going for. The price fluctuates. Sometimes you'll see it for as little as $10. Other times I've seen it as much as $400. So I believe it's a good get. Money Magic by Jade. So I think it's a good offer. I bought a bunch. And see, right now it's at $8. So it's one of those books that it goes up and down on the scale. However, if you want to save your $8, including shipping, because I'm going to cover shipping as well, go through my old videos. You'll catch the Easter egg, comment on the Easter egg, book is yours. I'm also going to be giving away a copy of Dion Fortune's Mystical Kabbalah. I'm going to be giving away a copy of David Godwin's Kabbalistic Encyclopedia. Basically, what I found was I went through my library and I found like not a bunch, but about 4 or 5 books that I had double copies of in great condition, never been marked up. So I said, you know what, as a promo, be giving them things away. So, hey, again, thank you for your time. Like, subscribe, hit me up. Let's build. Even if you don't like it, let me know. I promise not to block you until you get too annoying. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it is. I'm going to end this like Russell Simmons, man. Thanks for coming out. God bless and good night.